This first screen shows how you can have a keyboard case that will house your iPad. The main thing we emphasize iPad is because I looked up some of the research, and basically the laptop is dead since 2012. There's just not that much innovation going into it, and things are going more in the direction of this kind of technology, portable like this. And so you can have the keyboard and just put the iPad that you have right there, and that should be sufficient to give you the latitude that way. Plus, you can just touch the screen if you need to move things around, which makes it even more convenient, so you don't have to worry about a mouse. On this screen, notice the dongle at the end. You can attach an HDMI adapter, and that would go to a larger screen. So you can also have a larger screen than just your iPad, but yet you can configure with your fingers and your keyboard what you need on your word processor on the iPad, so you have that freedom that way. The other part is we were talking about is that when you're done looking at the larger screen, when you're done entering your word processing, you can just take out that dongle and you can put in this other device. Let me show this next device coming up. This device here would allow you to have a USB port, and that would give you the connection on an iPad for the next device that I want to show you. This device here would be the external hard drive, so that way you can back up all the data like we talked about, and that secures what you need to keep safe as far as your effort on the word processor. There's a lot of word processors, not just Word. If you don't want to have to buy Word or pay fees, you can use OpenOffice Writer, which is pretty much the same. It's an iOS device, it would go on the iPad, and so there's no charge for that. So that's a good application. There's a whole bunch of different other word processors, so you can play around with them. In the App Store, you can see what's free and what costs, and you get a pretty good idea of what you'd like to feel comfortable with as far as word processing. Here's a sample. I just started typing something in here on the word processor that I had on the iPad to kind of give you an example. And of course, the ultimate thing is you want to make sure you back up to the external hard drive. And I mentioned mirroring the hard drives, so you have two hard drive backups. That way, alright, so your hard drive fails on your iPad, there's no problem, because everything that's important data-wise is on your backup hard drive. Not only that, you have that hard drive mirrored. They have what's called mirrored arrays. I mean, most big companies have more than just two hard drives they mirror to, because they want to have redundancy to the maximum with several backups of hard drives. But I think it's just just fine just to have one or two backups. And right here you can see this plan I talked about, crash plan, which helps you not only to back up to another hard drive on a remote situation, but you could back up to the cloud, which I don't always recommend, because anything like that can be hacked. But your own hard drive, external hard drive, you can encrypt that data and then password it, and that's very safe. And that way nobody can hack into it. It's offline. It's never sitting online with your computer live for anybody to hack it. And then when you need to work on a file, you just platoon it back in to the hard drive on your iPad. I mean, ultimately that's what you want to do, have everything out of your computers and your iPad. Really, computer is dead. The laptop is dead. They're not innovating. In fact, Apple's not even building any more iPads, or any more what they call AirPad, which was their notebook. They're just not doing it anymore, because it's just people just aren't using that kind of technology anymore. They want to have things on the fly. They want to be able to take things portable. They don't want to have to sit in front of a keyboard and a screen. That's outdated. I guess ergonomically it's not very comfortable. So it doesn't have the flexibility, doesn't allow for the creativity. Like when you're with your iPad, you can be anywhere you want, or if you want to be stationary, have a big screen like I described here, and have a keyboard in front of you, that also is an option. And most importantly, it seems you can back up everything. And so this whole little presentation here I made, you might want to run it by the Geek Squad guy, since you are paying a fee there to get online consultation. And just make sure that these files can be transferred properly, say from this OpenView word processor that I talked about, or if you want to pay a fee from Word, Microsoft, it's no problem to get that. And just make sure this all works before, because the only thing you'd have to buy would be the keyboard case, like I showed you before, and that little other device that acts as a USB port that would be the dongle, plus the other dongle that would be to your large screen. And those large screens are not that expensive. But you want HDMI connection. That's the most simple, modern, best resolution of all of them right now. 1080i is the standard. 720i would be sort of semi-half resolution, but really you want the 1080i, which is high def. You might as well, because it's the standard right now to be able to get the best clarity on your monitor. And so if you think about that, all right, say maybe $125 for the bigger screen, maybe say $50 for the keyboard case, and the dongles, the USB dongle and the one that would accommodate HDMI interface off your iPad. Those are usually $25 each, so that's $50. So you're looking, $175, $225, and then your external hard drive, be another $100. Say so maybe a $350 investment. You pretty well have something that's got a lot of latitude to it, and you have a strategy of how you're going to use to back up your data. You just want to make sure all this is seamless. Like when you get these parts, and what you want to do is have the Geek Squad say, yeah, this will work, and make sure they sign their name to the document. I always have people sign everything. I have everything on paper. If I talk to like a company, I make sure I get email, because I want to have an audit trail. So that if anything goes wrong, I can go back, and I always have a name, and I say, Cindy, you told me this was going to work on this date. I always have dates. If you notice, whenever I send you an email, I've always got a date on it. Not that I'm trying to audit you, but that's just a habit, because then I know when I talked about such and such a thing. And so that way you can have always in concrete, specific terminology when you're talking to people. Being a meaningful specific is very effective, and you always will have come through what you expect. So expectation won't result in frustration, which always occurs if people are ambiguous. They don't really notate very well what they've talked about with certain people. Then you can't really hold the people's feet to the fire, But, the way I've done it all these years, I really don't have any problem with that. The problems I have is like when I get blindsided, when people conspire and off to the side, they get greedy, and they start doing things that are very illegal, but yet they sort of get there in secret to take away assets, like I talked to you. That happens sometimes, rarely, but those things are unforeseen. There's some things you just can't, there's just some things you can't see coming. You just trust people, and then after over the years, people get sort of the nature of man takes over. They're either good people, or they turn out to be sort of half-baked, and they don't really have the integrity. They don't have the accountability for higher divine reciprocity that they're going to have to answer for later. And without that vision, they're going to perish, and there's nothing I can do about some things that are done. But I can control the best I can in my situation. Like, that situation I was wrong pretty bad. Well, I just didn't take, I have to go on. I'm not going to sit there and continue to rehash it, because then I'll pay the othermost farthing for wasting my time and just going on and not trusting the Lord, because His vengeance is very severe. They've already paid very heavy the punishment that He sent upon them, and there's going to be more that they're out of their depth with. So in those rare situations that occurs, but in 98% of the other things I've done that allowed me to get to that prosperity, that's how I did it. I always had very detailed notes on everything I'd ever transact, whether it was with travel or aspects I was doing with programming on the projects I was on. And so like that one with the MPD, I finished well ahead of time. The company I worked for, a Fortune 500 company, was very angry because I finished way ahead of time, and they didn't like that because they wanted to derive more money from the government on this cost plus budget. But because I got it done way early, they couldn't suck the taxpayer dry for more money because I got it done efficiently, which I believe in free enterprise. You should have the least amount of costs for the most quality product. And that's just my belief. I don't think you should try to exploit or extort a system. And that's just, that's the way we're taught, from when we were young, that the honest man is the noblest work of God. So if we just do that, he causes our mind to be very clear the closer we draw to him. And that way we're better servants to one another because we look upon one another with more compassion rather than trying to extort or exploit. And so dealing with specifics like this is kind of how I've always taken an approach. So hopefully this helps to give a vision so we don't perish in the process. But by having them sign their name and say, yeah, these files will transfer, whoever that is with the Geek Squad, Tom, Rob, whatever the guy's name will be, just say, I've got to make sure that these word processing files do transfer off the iPad to the external hard drive. That's a very operative question. You've got to know that that works so that you have a seamless situation. And they say, oh yeah, it'll work. Well, make sure they sign a document to that and with their name. And so if it doesn't work, even though you've broken the seals on the package of the different peripheral items, you can say, well, it didn't, you said it was going to work and it didn't. Then they have to be able to take it. They won't charge you some 15% restocking fee or some kind of peripheral charge. See, the knowledge will forsake the evils that they may do in the future because you have the documentation, which always beats conversation. So hopefully that helps.